The November morning air carried the crisp scent of fallen leaves and wood smoke through the streets of Asheville, North Carolina. Downtown's historic district buzzed with its usual rhythm, tourists snapping photos of Art Deco buildings, locals hurrying to work with steaming coffee cups, and street musicians setting up their instruments near Pack Square. The Blue Ridge Mountains loomed in the distance, their peaks already dusted with the season's first snow, creating a postcard-perfect backdrop for the city known for its artistic spirit and mountain charm. Madison Turner pushed through the glass door of Blue Ridge Coffee at exactly 6:45 a.m., 15 minutes before her shift began. She was always early. At 19 years old, Madison had worked at the small independent cafe for nearly 2 years, and punctuality was one of the many things that made her manager, Glenn Patterson, grateful to have her on staff. Madison had Down syndrome, but that never defined her. Her warm smile, meticulous attention to detail, and genuine love for people did. "Morning, Maddie," called Glenn from behind the espresso machine. He was a stocky man in his mid-50s, with graying hair pulled back in a ponytail and forearms covered in faded tattoos from his Navy days. Right on time, as always. "Good morning, Glenn." Madison's voice carried her signature enthusiasm. She hung her purple jacket, her favorite color, on the hook in the back room and tied her apron with practiced efficiency. Her shoulder-length brown hair was pulled into a neat ponytail, and she wore the cafe's standard uniform, black jeans and a forest green t-shirt with the Blue Ridge Coffee logo. The morning rush began promptly at 7. Madison worked the counter, taking orders with her tablet and greeting each customer by name if she recognized them. She knew dozens of regulars. Mr. Hernandez, who always ordered a double espresso with exactly 2 sugars, Mrs. Chen, who preferred her latte extra hot, and young Natalie Brooks, who came in before her nursing shift at Mission Hospital and always left an encouraging note on the tip jar. "1 medium caramel macchiato with oat milk," Madison repeated carefully, her finger hovering over the tablet screen. "And would you like whipped cream today, Mr. Hernandez?" "You know what, Maddie? Sure, let's do it. It's Friday after all." The older gentleman chuckled, his weathered face crinkling with genuine affection. Madison beamed and entered the order with precision. Around 10:30, when the morning rush had tapered to a trickle, 3 teenage boys slouched through the door. Madison recognized them from their previous visits over the past week. Travis Blackwood led the group, tall and lanky, with bleached blonde hair styled in a deliberate mess, wearing a leather jacket despite the mild weather. His companions, Cody Hartman and Jared Mitchell, flanked him like shadows. Cody was shorter and stocky with a buzz cut and perpetual sneer. Jared, the quietest of the 3, had sharp features and darting eyes that never seemed to settle on anything. "Well, well, look who's working today," Travis announced loudly, his voice dripping with mockery. Several customers glanced up from their laptops. "Hey, special girl, we need coffee." Madison's smile faltered slightly, but she maintained her composure. Glenn had taught her to treat every customer with respect, no matter what. "Good morning. What can I get for you today?" "Can you even understand what I'm saying?" Cody leaned over the counter, his face uncomfortably close to hers. "Or do we need to use simpler words?" "I understand," Madison said quietly, her fingers tightening around the tablet. "What would you like to order?" Travis pretended to study the menu board with exaggerated concentration. This is so complicated. Maybe too complicated for someone like you to handle. What do you think, boys? Should we order something really difficult?" "Yeah, let's see if she can keep up," Jared added, emboldened by his friends. 3 large black coffees, Travis finally said. "Think you can remember that, or should I write it down for you?" Madison's hands trembled slightly as she entered the order, but her voice remained steady. 3 large black coffees. That will be $9.75. Travis pulled out a crumpled $20 bill and deliberately dropped it on the floor. Oops, how clumsy of me. Can you get that? Before Madison could move, Glenn appeared from the back room, his expression hard. I'll handle this order, Maddie. Why don't you go check on the pastry case? Madison gratefully retreated while Glenn fixed the boys with a stare that carried decades of military discipline. Your coffee will be ready in a minute. Wait by the pickup counter. Travis opened his mouth to say something, but thought better of it when Glenn crossed his arms, revealing the full sleeve of navy tattoos. The three boys shuffled to the side, exchanging glances and muted snickers. When Glenn handed them their cups, he spoke in a low, firm voice. You boys are welcome here as customers, but you'll treat my staff with respect. That's non-negotiable. Understood? Sure thing, sir, Travis said with mock sincerity. Wouldn't dream of being disrespectful. They left, but not before Cody made an exaggerated show of waving at Madison through the window, causing his friends to burst into laughter on the sidewalk outside. Glenn walked over to where Madison was rearranging croissants in the display case, a task that didn't need doing. You okay, kiddo? I'm okay, Madison said, but her voice was smaller than usual. They're just mean sometimes. More than mean. That's bullying, and it's not acceptable. Glenn placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. If they come back and start that again, you come get me immediately. Don't engage with them. Just walk away and find me. Deal? Deal, Madison agreed, managing a small smile. The afternoon shift passed uneventfully. Madison's mother, Patricia Turner, picked her up at 3 o'clock as she did every weekday. Patricia was a middle school teacher with warm brown eyes and the same gentle demeanor as her daughter. She noticed Madison's subdued mood immediately. How was work, honey? Patricia asked as Madison buckled her seatbelt in their aging Honda Civic. It was good. Busy morning, Madison replied, looking out the window as they drove through downtown. She didn't mention the boys. She didn't want to worry her mother, who already worked so hard and worried so much. Their home was a modest ranch-style house in the West Asheville neighborhood, with a small front yard that Patricia kept filled with seasonal flowers. Madison's father, Robert Turner, had died in a construction accident when Madison was 12. Patricia had raised her alone since then, working double shifts when necessary to provide for them both. The house was filled with photos. Madison at Special Olympics basketball games, Madison's high school graduation from the inclusive program at Asheville High, Madison on family camping trips in the Piscataway National Forest. That evening, Madison helped her mother prepare dinner, spaghetti with meat sauce, one of their regular rotation meals. As they worked side by side in the small kitchen, Patricia chatting about her day with her 7th graders, Madison felt the tension from the morning begin to ease. This was her safe place, her home, her mother. But in the back of her mind, she couldn't shake the image of Travis's mocking smile or the sound of their laughter. She told herself it was just one bad encounter, that they probably wouldn't come back. She was wrong. Over the following week, Travis Blackwood and his friends made Blue Ridge Coffee their daily destination. They came in at varying times, sometimes during Madison's morning shift, sometimes in the afternoon, but always with the same purpose: to make her uncomfortable. Monday afternoon, they ordered complicated custom drinks, deliberately changing their minds multiple times and speaking quickly, so Madison struggled to keep up with the modifications. When she politely asked them to repeat themselves, Travis sighed dramatically. This is taking forever. Maybe they should hire people who can actually do the job, he said loudly enough for other customers to hear. On Wednesday, Cody accidentally knocked over the tip jar while Madison was cleaning a nearby table, sending coins scattering across the floor. When she knelt to pick them up, all 3 boys took photos with their phones, laughing about posting them online. Look at her crawling around, Jared said, holding his phone at an unflattering angle. This is going straight to Instagram. Glenn intervened each time, his patience wearing thinner with each encounter. He'd asked them to leave twice, but they'd always walk out before he could formally ban them, and they'd return the next day claiming they had every right to be customers. Glenn discussed calling the police, but Madison begged him not to, afraid it would only make things worse. "They'll get bored and stop," she insisted, though she didn't quite believe it herself. By Friday, Madison dreaded going to work. The knot in her stomach started forming the night before, making it hard to sleep. Patricia noticed her daughter's decreased appetite at breakfast and the way she moved, more slowly than usual, getting ready for work. "Maddie, honey, is something wrong? You seem upset," Patricia asked, sitting down at the kitchen table across from her daughter. Madison pushed her oatmeal around in the bowl. "Just tired, Mom. I'm okay." Patricia wasn't convinced, but she'd learned over the years that pushing Madison to talk before she was ready often backfired. "Well, I'm here whenever you want to chat. About anything. You know that, right?" "I know, Mom." Madison stood and hugged her mother tightly. "I love you. I love you too, sweetheart, more than anything in this world." That Friday afternoon was unusually quiet at Blue Ridge Coffee. The tourist season was winding down, and many of the regulars had already come and gone. Madison was wiping down tables at 2:30, half an hour before her shift ended, when the door chimed. Her stomach dropped. Travis, Cody, and Jared walked in, but something was different today. Their energy was more aggressive, more focused. Travis wore his usual leather jacket, but his eyes had a cold determination that made Madison's hands start shaking before he even spoke. Well, if it isn't our favorite worker," Travis announced. Glenn wasn't in the front. He'd gone to the bank to make a deposit, leaving Madison with Angela Morrison, a college student who worked part-time and was currently in the back room doing inventory. "What can I get for you?" Madison asked, retreating behind the counter where she felt marginally safer. "Actually, we don't want coffee today," Travis said, leaning against the counter with manufactured casualness. "We want to talk. You see, we've been wondering something. How much do they pay you here? Is it minimum wage, or do you get some kind of special discount rate because, he gestured vaguely at Madison. I don't understand what you mean," Madison stammered. Cody laughed harshly. "He means because you're retarded. Do you even know what that word means?" "That's not a nice word," Madison said, her voice barely above a whisper. "People shouldn't say that word." "Oh, people shouldn't say that word," Jared mimicked in a childish voice. "What are you going to do about it? Cry?" Madison felt tears prickling at her eyes, which only made her more frustrated with herself. She didn't want to give them the satisfaction of seeing her upset. She took a deep breath, trying to remember what her mother had taught her about dealing with bullies. "I think you should leave now," she said, trying to sound firm, but hearing the quaver in her own voice. "You think we should leave?" Travis stepped around the counter, invading the staff space. "Who's going to make us? You?" Madison backed up until she hit the espresso machine. "Angela!" she called out, her voice rising with panic. "Angela, I need help!" Angela emerged from the back room, taking in the scene with wide eyes. She was a petite 20-year-old with pink-streaked hair, and while she wanted to help, she was visibly intimidated by the 3 teenage boys. "Hey, you guys need to stay on the customer side of the counter. That's staff only." "Oh, we're sorry," Travis said with exaggerated politeness, holding up his hands in mock surrender. "We were just leaving anyway. Come on, boys." As they walked toward the door, Travis turned back. "See you around, Maddie. Real soon." The threat in those words was unmistakable. Madison made it through the rest of her shift in a daze. When Patricia picked her up at 3, Madison finally broke down in the car, the stress of the entire week pouring out in shaking sobs. "They keep coming in and being mean, and I try to be nice, but they just laugh at me, and I don't know what to do, Mom. I don't know what I did wrong." Madison cried, her words tumbling over each other. Patricia pulled into a parking lot and held her daughter while she cried, her own heart breaking. You didn't do anything wrong, baby, nothing. Those boys are the ones who are wrong. We're going to fix this. I promise you, we're going to fix this. That evening, Patricia called Glenn at home. They spoke for nearly an hour, developing a plan. Glenn would formally ban the three boys from the cafe, complete with photos and a written trespass notice. If they returned, he'd call the police immediately. Patricia also planned to contact the school district. Travis and his friends were seniors at Asheville High, her daughter's former school, and their behavior should be reported. But they needed to identify the boys first, to know their full names, and be able to file formal complaints. Glenn had only caught a glimpse of them, and Madison didn't know their last names. The following Monday, Madison returned to work with her mother's words echoing in her mind. You are brave. You are strong. You are loved. Don't let anyone make you feel less than the amazing person you are. The morning passed without incident. Madison began to hope that maybe they really had gotten bored, that maybe it was over. Her shift was scheduled until 2, and at 1:45, she clocked out and said goodbye to Glenn and the afternoon staff. She walked out into the parking lot behind the cafe, where Patricia would pick her up in 15 minutes. The autumn sun was bright, the afternoon unseasonably warm. Madison sat on the wooden bench near the employee entrance, pulling out her phone to text her mother that she was ready. She didn't hear them approach until it was too late. Hey, Maddie. She looked up to find Travis, Cody, and Jared standing in front of her, blocking her path. There was no one else in the parking lot. The bench was tucked in a corner, out of sight from the street. Leave me alone, Madison said, standing up and trying to move past them. Her heart hammered in her chest. Travis stepped sideways, blocking her path. We're not done with you. Do you know how pathetic you are? How everyone laughs at you? You're a joke, Maddie. A walking, talking joke. My mom is coming. She'll be here any minute, Madison said, hating how her voice shook. Good. Maybe we should tell her what a waste of space her daughter is, Cody added, pulling out his phone to record. Madison tried to walk around them again, but Jared grabbed her arm roughly. Where do you think you're going? Let go of me! Madison tried to pull away, and that's when Travis shoved her. It wasn't a hard shove, but Madison wasn't expecting it. She stumbled backward, her phone clattering to the pavement. When she bent to pick it up, Cody kicked it away, sending it skittering under a parked car. Oops, he said with a cruel smile. Madison felt tears streaming down her face now. Please stop. Please just leave me alone. Oh, is the baby crying? Travis mocked. What are you going to do? Tell your mommy? Tell your boss? Who's going to believe you? We'll just say you're making it up, that you're too stupid to know what really happened. Jared shoved her from behind this time, causing her to fall forward onto her hands and knees on the rough pavement. Pain shot through her palms as the concrete tore her skin. She heard their laughter, felt the humiliation burning hot in her chest, and thought this was it. This was as bad as it could get. Then she heard the rumble of motorcycles. The sound grew louder, deep and powerful, until 4 Harley-Davidson motorcycles pulled into the parking lot. The riders wore leather jackets with patches on the back. She couldn't make out the design through her tears, but she saw Travis's face change from cruel amusement to alarm. The lead rider, a massive man with a graying beard and arms like tree trunks, cut his engine and removed his helmet. His eyes, a striking pale blue, took in the scene with the experienced gaze of someone who'd seen too much violence in his life to mistake it for anything else. Looks like we got here just in time, he said, his voice carrying the kind of authority that made people listen without question. You boys got about 5 seconds to explain why that young lady is on the ground crying. Marcus Bull Henderson had been riding motorcycles for 35 years, since he was 17 years old, and bought his first beat-up Yamaha with money saved from his summer construction job. Now 52, he'd been through 2 marriages, 3 deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan as an Army Ranger, and more firefights than he cared to count. He'd earned the nickname Bull, not just for his size, 6'4" and 250 pounds of muscle, but for his stubborn refusal to quit once he set his mind to something. The Iron Brotherhood Motorcycle Club had started 8 years ago when Bull and 3 other veterans found themselves struggling to adjust to civilian life in Asheville. They'd discovered that the brotherhood they'd lost when leaving military service could be partially rebuilt through motorcycling. What started as informal weekend rides had evolved into a registered non-profit organization dedicated to veteran support services and community outreach. Today's ride was supposed to be a simple coffee run. Hit Blue Ridge Coffee for their excellent espresso, then head up into the mountains for a scenic afternoon ride through the Blue Ridge Parkway. Bull rode point, followed by Raymond Ray Cooper, Dominic Dom Sullivan, and Christine Chris Wallace. Ray, at 48, was a former Marine Corps helicopter mechanic with hands that could repair anything mechanical and a quick wit that kept the group laughing. His black skin bore the scars of burns from a helicopter fire during his second tour in Fallujah, but he wore them with pride. Dom, the youngest at 35, had been an Army medic and brought those medical skills to his current job as an EMT with the Asheville Fire Department. His dark hair was always kept military short, and his intense brown eyes missed nothing, a trait that made him excellent at his job. Chris, 42, was the club's only female member and its most skilled rider. She'd served in the Air Force as a cargo pilot and now owned a successful motorcycle repair shop called Wallace Custom Bikes. With her red hair typically in a long braid and mechanic's tattoos covering her arms, she could outride most men and outcurse all of them. They'd been approaching the cafe's back parking lot when Bull spotted the scene. A young woman on the ground. 3 teenage punks standing over her laughing, one of them filming with his phone. The entire situation triggered something primal in Bull's protective instincts, the same instincts that had led him to become a ranger, to volunteer for the most dangerous missions, to place himself between harm and the vulnerable. He didn't think, he just reacted, signaling the others to follow him into the parking lot. Now, standing 10 feet from 3 teenagers who suddenly looked much less confident, Bull waited for an answer to his question. Travis opened his mouth, closed it, then seemed to find his bravado again. "This is none of your business, old man. We're just talking to a friend." "That's so?" Bull looked at Madison, who was still on the ground, her hands bleeding, her face streaked with tears. "Young lady, are these boys your friends?" Madison shook her head violently. "No. They hurt me. They've been mean to me for days, and they won't leave me alone." Chris was already off her bike and kneeling beside Madison, her first aid training kicking in automatically. "Let me see your hands, sweetheart." "Okay, you got some scrapes here. Dom, bring the medical kit." Dom was moving before she finished the sentence, pulling a comprehensive first aid kit from his saddlebag. Ray stood with his arms crossed, positioning himself between the boys and Madison, his presence alone enough to keep them from running. "Here's what's going to happen," Bull said, his voice calm but carrying an edge of steel that made it clear this wasn't a negotiation. "You 3 are going to stand right there. Ray, get their names and take their pictures. Then these gentlemen are going to apologize to this young lady and they're going to leave. If I ever, and I mean ever, hear about them bothering her again, they'll answer to me and the entire Iron Brotherhood. We clear?" "You can't do this," Jared protested, his voice cracking slightly. "You're threatening us. We could call the cops." "Please do." Bull pulled out his own phone. "I'd love to explain to them how I found 3 young men assaulting a woman in a parking lot. Ray's been recording this whole conversation, by the way. Standard practice for the club when we witness potential crimes. Want me to play it back for the officers?" Travis's face paled. "We weren't assaulting anyone. We were just messing around." That's not what it looked like to 4 witnesses, Chris called out from where she was carefully bandaging Madison's hands with practiced efficiency. And honey, did they touch you, push you, or grab you? Madison nodded, her voice small but clear. Travis pushed me, and Jared grabbed my arm really hard and then pushed me from behind. That's when I fell. That's assault and battery, Dom said matter-of-factly, finishing his examination of Madison's injuries. Minor injuries, but documented. We got this all on video, too. So yeah, call the cops if you want, kids. See how that works out for you. The bravado had completely drained from all 3 boys now. They looked like what they were. Scared teenagers who just realized they'd gone too far and gotten caught by the wrong people. Ray had been efficiently collecting information, taking photos of each boy's face with his phone. Full names, now. Travis Blackwood, the blonde boy muttered. Cody Hartman, Jared Mitchell. What school do you attend? Ray continued, making notes on his phone. Asheville High. We're seniors. Parents' names? They provided that information too, with significantly less attitude than they'd shown Madison. Bull walked over to where Chris was helping Madison to her feet. Up close, he could see she was probably late teens or early 20s, with Down syndrome based on her facial features, and absolutely terrified. His voice gentled considerably when he spoke to her. My name's Marcus Henderson, but everyone calls me Bull. You're safe now. These boys aren't going to hurt you anymore. Can you tell me your name? Madison Turner, she said quietly, then added with careful politeness, despite everything, thank you for helping me. That's what we do, Madison. Bull smiled, the expression transforming his intimidating face into something warm and grandfatherly. Now, do you work here at the cafe? Yes, I just finished my shift. My mom is coming to pick me up. Madison looked around frantically. My phone! It's under that car. They kicked it. Ray retrieved the phone, checking it for damage. Screen's cracked, but it still works. Here you go. Just then, a silver Honda Civic pulled into the parking lot with Patricia Turner at the wheel. She'd arrived exactly on time, expecting to see her daughter waiting on the bench. Instead, she saw her daughter surrounded by 4 large people in motorcycle gear, 3 teenage boys standing nearby, and immediately her maternal instincts went into overdrive. Patricia was out of the car almost before it stopped moving. Madison, what's happening? Are you okay? Mom! Madison ran to her mother, and Patricia wrapped her arms around her daughter, taking in the bandaged hands and tear-stained face with growing horror. Bull approached slowly, hands visible and non-threatening. Ma'am, I'm Bull Henderson. I apologize for the alarm, but we just intervened in a situation. These 3 boys were harassing and assaulting your daughter in the parking lot. My club members and I witnessed it and stopped it. Your daughter has minor injuries to her hands from being pushed to the ground, but our medic has treated them. Patricia's eyes went from Bull to the 3 boys, and her expression transformed from worry to fury. You hurt my daughter? Travis took a step back from the force of her anger. It wasn't. They've been bullying her for over a week, Bull continued, his voice gentle but firm. Coming into the cafe where she works, harassing her, making fun of her disability, and today they followed her out here and physically assaulted her. We have it all on video. We've collected their full names and information. Glenn Patterson chose that moment to return from the bank, taking in the scene with confusion that quickly turned to understanding and then rage. What the hell is going on? The situation was explained again. Glenn's face turned progressively redder as Bull recounted what they'd witnessed. When Bull finished, Glenn strode over to the 3 boys. You are permanently banned from my establishment. If you set foot in Blue Ridge Coffee again, I will have you arrested for trespassing. Do you understand me? All 3 boys nodded, looking at the ground. Patricia had her phone out, calling the police. I don't care what anyone says. I'm reporting this. These boys assaulted my daughter, and they're going to face consequences." Bull nodded approvingly. "Good, you should. We'll all give statements as witnesses." 2 Asheville Police Department cruisers arrived within 15 minutes. Officers Daniel Wright and Jennifer Santos took statements from everyone present. Bull provided the video footage from Ray's phone, showing the clear progression of events. The boys' initial swagger was long gone. Jared looked like he might vomit, and even Travis had lost his defiant edge when faced with actual legal consequences. "Based on what we're seeing here, we have grounds to charge all 3 of you with assault and battery," Officer Wright said, his expression stern. "We're also going to contact your parents and the school. This isn't just going to disappear." While the officers continued their investigation, Chris sat on the bench with Madison and Patricia, explaining who the Iron Brotherhood was. "We're mostly veterans," Chris said, her voice warm and reassuring. "We do charity rides, volunteer work, support for other veterans. We're not a criminal motorcycle gang or anything like that. We're registered as a non-profit. We just believe in watching out for people who need help and in standing up to bullies." "I don't know how to thank you," Patricia said, tears in her eyes. "If you hadn't been here—" "Don't think about that," Chris interrupted gently. "We were here. That's what matters." Bull joined them after finishing his statement with the police. "Mrs. Turner, those boys are likely going to face charges, but the reality is they're minors from what we understand. The legal system might go easy on them. What I'd like to offer, if you're interested, is for the Iron Brotherhood to make sure those boys understand there are people watching, people who won't tolerate them bothering Madison again." "What do you mean?" Patricia asked cautiously. "Nothing illegal or threatening," Bull assured her quickly. "But we have about 40 members in our club. We can make sure someone's around when Madison's working, just visible. We can have a conversation with the boys' parents, community to community. We can spread the word through our networks. We know a lot of people in Asheville. Social pressure can be more effective than legal consequences sometimes, especially with teenagers." "I want them to leave Maddie alone forever," Patricia said firmly. "If you can help with that, I'd be grateful." Officer Santos approached with her notepad. "Mrs. Turner, we're going to file formal charges. You'll need to come to the station tomorrow to make an official statement and fill out paperwork. The boys have been released to their parents with citations, and they'll have court dates scheduled. We're also going to issue restraining orders on Madison's behalf, meaning they legally cannot come within 100 feet of her or the cafe." "Good," Patricia said. "Thank you, officer." As the police cars pulled away with the boys inside, not under arrest, but being driven home as part of the official response, Madison looked up at Bull with something like awe. "You saved me," she said simply. "You're like superheroes." Bull laughed, a deep rumbling sound. "Not superheroes, Madison, just people who believe in doing the right thing. But I'll tell you what, you're pretty brave yourself. You kept asking them to stop, you called for help, you told the truth about what happened. That takes real courage." Madison smiled for the first time since the ordeal began, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. Before they parted ways, Bull gave Patricia his business card with the Iron Brotherhood's contact information. "You call us if anything happens, anything at all. We mean it. Madison's under our protection now." As the motorcycles rumbled out of the parking lot heading toward the mountains, Madison watched them go with a feeling she hadn't experienced in weeks: safety. The news spread through Asheville with the speed that only small city gossip could achieve. By Tuesday morning, half the downtown business owners had heard some version of the story. Veteran bikers had stopped local teenagers from assaulting a young woman with special needs behind Blue Ridge Coffee. The details varied depending on who was telling it, but the core facts remained consistent, especially since Bull had posted a carefully worded account on the Iron Brotherhood's Facebook page, complete with the video footage, with Madison's permission, that had been shared nearly 3,000 times in 24 hours. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The three boys' names, Travis Blackwood, Cody Hartman, and Jared Mitchell, circulated through social media alongside their photos. Parents throughout Asheville, who knew Madison from her years in the inclusive education program at Asheville High, shared the posts with comments ranging from disappointment to outright fury. Local disability advocacy groups amplified the message. Within 48 hours, the story had been picked up by regional news outlets. Travis's father, Richard Blackwood, owned a successful real estate agency downtown. By Wednesday morning, his office phone was ringing off the hook, not with business inquiries, but with angry community members demanding to know how he'd raised such a cruel son. Two clients canceled major property listings. The Asheville Chamber of Commerce received multiple complaints about his business. Cody's parents, Michael and Jennifer Hartman, ran a family restaurant in the River Arts District. On Wednesday night, they had their slowest dinner service in 5 years. Several regulars made a point of telling them why they wouldn't be returning. Someone left a 1-star review online specifically mentioning their son's behavior, sparking dozens of similar reviews before the restaurant's social media pages were flooded with comments. Jared's mother, Susan Mitchell, was a nurse at Mission Hospital, the same hospital where several Iron Brotherhood members had received treatment for various injuries over the years, and where Dom worked as an EMT. She found herself having uncomfortable conversations with colleagues who knew Madison from her frequent visits to the children's wing, where Madison volunteered reading to pediatric patients once a month through a community program. The boys themselves were suspended from Asheville High pending an investigation. Principal Victoria Hayes took the incident seriously, especially given that Madison was an alumna of their inclusive education program. She met personally with Patricia and Madison, expressing the school's complete support and assuring them that the boys would face significant disciplinary action. On Thursday, Bull received a phone call from Richard Blackwood requesting a meeting. His voice on the phone was professional but strained. "Mr. Henderson, I'd like to discuss this situation with you. I think there's been a misunderstanding about what happened with the kids." "No misunderstanding," Bull replied flatly. "We have video. We have witnesses. We have your son's own admission to the police. But I'm willing to meet. You know where Wallace Custom Bikes is? The motorcycle shop on Depot Street? That's Chris Wallace's place. She's a member of our club. We'll meet there tomorrow, 2 p.m. Bring your son. I want him to hear this conversation." Richard Blackwood agreed, though his reluctance was palpable. Friday afternoon, Bull arrived at Wallace Custom Bikes with Ray, Dom, and Chris. The shop was a converted warehouse with high ceilings, industrial lighting, and the pervasive smell of motor oil and leather. Motorcycles in various states of repair filled the space, and Chris's office, really more of a workspace with a desk shoved in the corner, was where they'd conduct the meeting. Richard Blackwood arrived with Travis in tow. The father was a tall, well-dressed man in his late 40s, with the practiced confidence of someone used to closing deals and commanding rooms. That confidence wavered when he walked into the shop and found himself facing 4 military veterans, all watching him with expressions that weren't hostile, but weren't friendly either. Travis looked like he'd aged 5 years in 5 days. His usual bravado was completely gone, replaced by hunched shoulders and downcast eyes. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," Richard began, settling into one of the mismatched chairs Chris had arranged. "I've seen the video. I've spoken with my son at length. I want to start by saying that what happened was completely unacceptable, and Travis knows that." "Does he?" Bull leaned back against Chris's workbench, arms crossed. "Or does he know he got caught?" "I know what I did was wrong," Travis said quietly, still not meeting anyone's eyes. "I'm sorry." "Who are you apologizing to right now?" Ray asked. "Because Madison isn't here. You're apologizing to us, but we're not the ones you hurt." Travis finally looked up, his eyes red-rimmed. I want to apologize to her, to Madison, but my lawyer said I shouldn't have any contact with her because of the restraining order and the court case. Your lawyer's right about that, Dom confirmed. So here's the question. Are you actually sorry, or are you sorry you're facing consequences? Richard shifted uncomfortably. Look, I know my son made terrible choices, but he's 17 years old. Kids do stupid things. This shouldn't ruin his entire future. He's been accepted to NC State for next fall. He has his whole life ahead of him. Madison has her whole life ahead of her too, Chris said sharply. A life that your son tried to make significantly worse. Do you have any idea what it's like for people with intellectual disabilities? The constant discrimination, the low expectations, the struggle just to be treated with basic human dignity. Madison works hard every single day to prove herself, and your son tried to tear her down for entertainment. Richard looked genuinely uncomfortable now. I understand that. What do you want from us? Travis is facing criminal charges. He's been suspended from school. Our family's business is suffering. What more can we do? Bull exchanged glances with his fellow club members before responding. Here's what we want. First, when this goes to court, Travis needs to take responsibility. No pleading down to lesser charges, no trying to get out of consequences. He did what he did, and he needs to own it. Second, Ray continued, Travis needs to do real community service. Not just the minimum hours the court orders, but meaningful service. We're thinking something involving disability advocacy. Let him learn firsthand about the community he targeted. Third, Dom added, Travis and his friends need to participate in restorative justice. There are programs that focus on understanding harm, taking responsibility, and making amends. We want them enrolled in something like that. Chris pulled out a folder she'd prepared. We've already researched options. There's an excellent program through the Asheville Area Rights Alliance that works with teens. It's intensive, weekly meetings for 6 months minimum, but it's effective. Richard looked at the materials, his expression troubled. This is all very extensive. Your son extensively bullied and assaulted a vulnerable young woman, Bull said flatly. This is what real accountability looks like. Not just punishment, but actual growth and change. Travis spoke up suddenly, his voice breaking. I'll do it. All of it. I'll do whatever they want. He looked at his father. Dad, I'm not proud of what I did. I've been reading about Madison online, about all the stuff she does, the volunteering, the Special Olympics, all of it. She's a better person than I am. I was cruel because Cody and Jared thought it was funny, and I went along with it, and then it became this thing where I had to keep being worse to prove something, and I don't even know what I was trying to prove anymore. It was the most genuine thing anyone had heard from Travis since the incident. Bull studied the teenager carefully, trying to determine if this was real remorse or just a performance. He'd seen both in his time, soldiers who were genuinely sorry for their mistakes and soldiers who were just sorry they'd been caught. Here's the thing, Travis, Bull said finally, his voice less harsh. I actually believe you feel bad right now. But feelings are temporary. Character is what you do when no one's watching. What you did to Madison wasn't an accident or a mistake. It was a pattern of behavior over multiple days. You had lots of chances to stop, to think about what you were doing, to be a better person. You didn't take any of those chances. So now you need to prove that you've actually changed, not just that you feel bad about getting caught. I will, Travis said. I promise I will. Richard Blackwood looked at his son with an expression that mixed disappointment and a grudging respect for Travis's willingness to accept responsibility. We'll do everything you've outlined. The community service, the restorative justice program, taking full responsibility in court. You have my word. Good. Bull said, because if any of you boys go near Madison again, if you harass her online, if you so much as look at her wrong when you're inevitably in the same space, the Iron Brotherhood will make sure everyone knows about it. We have 40 members and we have long memories. We don't threaten, we don't engage in violence, but we do protect our community. Madison is part of that community now. Understood? Understood, both father and son replied. After the Blackwoods left, similar meetings were held with the Hartman and Mitchell families. Cody's parents were defensive at first, trying to minimize their son's role as just following along. But Ray shut that down quickly by showing them the video of Cody kicking Madison's phone and mocking her tears. They agreed to the same terms. Jared's mother, Susan, came alone. She was divorced and Jared's father had moved to Colorado years ago. She was already crying before the meeting even started. "I failed him," she said quietly. "I work so much, so many double shifts at the hospital, and I just didn't see what he was becoming. I knew he was hanging around with Travis and Cody, and I thought it was good that he had friends, but I should have paid more attention to what kind of friends they were." Dom, who had worked with Susan at the hospital, spoke gently. "It's not about assigning blame to parents. Teenagers make their own choices. But it is about making sure Jared understands why those choices were wrong and giving him tools to make better ones going forward." Susan nodded emphatically. "He'll do the programs, all of them, and I'm going to cut back my hours. I've been so focused on making sure we're financially stable that I forgot to make sure he was emotionally stable. That's going to change." By the end of the week, all 3 boys had enrolled in the Restorative Justice Program. Their court dates were scheduled for the following month, and their lawyers had been instructed to accept responsibility and seek community service as part of sentencing rather than fighting the charges. Meanwhile, the Iron Brotherhood had quietly organized a rotating schedule of members to be visible around Blue Ridge Coffee during Madison's shifts. They didn't hover or make a show of it. They just came in for coffee, sat at the outdoor tables, struck up conversations with other customers. Their presence was casual but unmistakable, and the message was clear. Madison had people watching out for her. Madison herself was gradually returning to normal, though the incident had shaken her confidence. She was quieter at work, more hesitant with customers she didn't know. Patricia had found her a counselor who specialized in working with adults with intellectual disabilities, helping Madison process the trauma and rebuild her sense of safety. On Saturday morning, a week after the incident, Bull stopped by Blue Ridge Coffee for his usual espresso. Madison was working the counter, and when she saw him, her face lit up with genuine joy. "Bull, you want your regular espresso?" "You remembered my order," Bull said with a smile. "I'm impressed." "I'm good at remembering," Madison said proudly. "That'll be $3.50. As Bull waited for his drink, Glenn came over to shake his hand. "I can't thank you and your club enough. Madison's doing better every day, and knowing you folks are around has been huge for her confidence." "It's what we do," Bull said simply. "How's she really doing?" Glenn glanced at Madison, who was carefully preparing Bull's espresso, with her tongue slightly stuck out in concentration, a habit she had when focused on a task. "She's resilient. Kids with Down syndrome, they're often underestimated, but they're tough as hell. She'll get through this, especially with the support she's got." Bull nodded, accepting his perfectly prepared espresso. He left a $10 bill in the tip jar and headed to one of the outdoor tables where Ray was already seated, watching the morning foot traffic down the street. "Think those boys learned their lesson?" Ray asked as Bull sat down. "Maybe, maybe not. But they'll think twice before doing something like this again, and that's a start." Bull sipped his espresso, savoring the rich flavor. "Besides, we'll be watching." "Always," Ray agreed. "That's the whole point of the Brotherhood, isn't it? Having people who watch your back and watching out for people who need it." Bull added, glancing back through the window at Madison, who was laughing at something Glenn had said, her smile bright and genuine. For the first time in a week, Bull felt like maybe things would actually be okay. 3 months passed, and winter settled fully over Asheville. The mountains wore thick blankets of snow, the city's streets decorated with holiday lights, and Blue Ridge Coffee sold more hot chocolate and seasonal lattes than Glenn could keep in stock. The tourist season had slowed to a trickle, making the cafe a cozy haven for locals seeking warmth and community. Madison had regained her confidence gradually, like a flower opening after a storm. The counseling sessions helped, as did the consistent support from her mother, Glenn, and the Iron Brotherhood members who'd become regular fixtures at the cafe. She knew their orders by heart now: Bull's double espresso, Ray's cappuccino with extra foam, Dom's Americano, and Chris's black coffee with exactly 2 sugars. The legal proceedings had concluded in late November. All 3 boys had pled guilty to assault and battery. Travis received 120 hours of community service, 12 months of probation, and mandatory participation in the Restorative Justice Program. Cody and Jared received similar sentences. None of them would have criminal records if they successfully completed their probation, a provision their lawyers had fought hard for, but one that came with strict conditions. Travis had been working at the Asheville Area Rights Alliance headquarters, helping with office work and attending educational programs about disability rights. His initial resentment had gradually shifted into something resembling genuine understanding. He'd listened to adults with Down syndrome talk about their experiences with discrimination, watched video testimonials from families, and slowly began to grasp the weight of what he'd done. Cody was volunteering at a group home for adults with developmental disabilities, helping with meal preparation and recreational activities under close supervision. The work was humbling. He couldn't hide behind mockery or cruelty when faced with real people who treated him with kindness despite having no reason to. Jared had been assigned to help with the Special Olympics basketball program, where he assisted coaches and helped set up equipment. Madison was on one of the teams. They hadn't spoken directly. The restraining order was still in effect, but Jared watched her play from a distance, seeing her joy in the game, her teamwork with her fellow athletes, her determination when she missed a shot and immediately worked to improve. It was impossible not to recognize her humanity when he saw her as a complete person, rather than a target for amusement. On a cold Saturday in mid-December, the Iron Brotherhood organized their annual toy drive and charity event at Wallace Custom Bikes. It was their biggest fundraiser of the year, collecting toys for children in need throughout Buncombe County. They'd invited Madison and Patricia as special guests, wanting to highlight Madison's story as an example of community resilience and support. The shop was transformed for the occasion. The motorcycles moved aside to create space for tables laden with donated toys, food, and hot drinks. Local businesses had contributed, and dozens of community members cycled through the event throughout the day. A local bluegrass band played in the corner, their music adding to the festive atmosphere. Madison wore a new purple sweater, still her favorite color, and moved through the crowd with growing confidence. People approached her specifically to say hello, many telling her they'd followed her story and were proud of how strong she'd been. She accepted their words with grace, though Patricia could see the tears shining in her daughter's eyes at the overwhelming support. Bull had been watching Madison interact with people when he noticed 3 teenage boys enter the shop, looking decidedly uncomfortable. Travis, Cody, and Jared stood just inside the door, clearly uncertain of their welcome. "Interesting," Ray muttered, coming to stand beside Bull. "Didn't expect to see them here." "Their community service coordinators probably suggested it," Dom said, joining them. "Part of the restorative justice approach, facing the community they harmed." Chris walked over to the boys with her typical directness. "You 3 here to cause trouble or to help?" "To help," Travis said quickly. "If you'll let us." We don't want to upset anyone, especially Madison. We'll leave if our being here is a problem. Chris studied them for a long moment, then nodded toward the toy sorting tables. We need help organizing toys by age group and gender. You can work over there. Stay away from Madison unless she approaches you first. Clear? Yes, ma'am, all three boys replied. They worked quietly for the next hour, sorting toys efficiently and keeping their heads down. Patricia noticed them at one point and tensed, but Bull was immediately at her side. They're here as volunteers, he explained quietly, part of their community service and the restorative justice program. We can ask them to leave if it bothers you or Madison. Patricia looked at Madison, who had noticed the boys and had gone very still. What do you think, honey? Are you okay with them being here? Madison was quiet for a long moment, watching Travis carefully sort toys into boxes. When she finally spoke, her voice was thoughtful. They looked different. Not mean anymore. Just sad. They should be sad, Patricia said firmly. They hurt you. I know. Madison took a breath. But Bull says that people can learn to be better. That's what the Iron Brotherhood does. They help people be better. Maybe those boys are learning too. Patricia felt tears spring to her eyes at her daughter's capacity for forgiveness, even as her own anger still burned hot. You're a better person than I am, Maddie. Can I go talk to them? Madison asked. Just for a minute? Bull had overheard the conversation. That's entirely up to you, Madison. You don't owe them anything, but if you want to, we'll be right here. Madison nodded and walked slowly toward the toy sorting table. Travis saw her approaching and froze, his hands hovering over a stuffed bear. Cody and Jared noticed too, both of them looking terrified. Hi, Madison said simply. Hi, Travis replied, his voice barely audible. Madison, He struggled to find words. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for what we did to you. There's no excuse. It was cruel and wrong, and you didn't deserve any of it. Cody spoke up, his voice thick with emotion. I'm sorry too. I was a coward. I went along with everything because I thought it made me cool, but it just made me a terrible person. You were always nice to us, and we were monsters. I'm sorry, Jared added quietly. I think about what we did every day. It makes me sick. You're a good person, and we tried to hurt you for no reason except that we could. That's unforgivable. Madison listened to each of them, her expression serious. It really hurt, she said honestly. Not just my hands when I fell, but my feelings too. You made me scared to go to work. You made me feel bad about myself. I know, Travis said, tears running down his face now. I know we did, and I'll never forgive myself for that. But you're here, Madison continued. You're sorting toys for kids who need them. That's a nice thing to do. It doesn't make up for what we did, Cody said. No, Madison agreed. But it's a start. Bull says that being sorry means changing your actions, not just saying words. Are you changing? Travis nodded emphatically. I'm trying. I'm really trying. I'm learning about people with disabilities, about what they face every day, and I'm realizing how much harder I made your life when it was already hard enough. I want to be better. I want to actually help people instead of hurting them. Me too, Jared said. I've been working with Special Olympics and seeing you play basketball. You're really good, by the way. It made me see you as a real person instead of just... I don't know what I thought before, but I was wrong about everything. Madison considered this carefully. Okay, I forgive you. Not because what you did was okay, but because holding on to being angry makes me feel bad inside. My counselor says forgiveness is for me, not for you, so I forgive you. The relief on the three boys' faces was palpable, but Travis shook his head. You're more generous than we deserve. Thank you. And I promise, we promise, we'll never bother you again. We'll stay away from you and Blue Ridge Coffee and anywhere you are. You don't have to stay away forever, Madison said thoughtfully, but maybe for a while, until you really do change. Then maybe one day you can come get coffee, and you can be nice customers instead of mean ones. That would be, thank you, Travis said, overcome. Madison nodded and returned to where her mother and the Iron Brotherhood members were watching. Patricia immediately wrapped her daughter in a hug. I'm proud of you, Patricia whispered. So incredibly proud. Bull approached them with his characteristic directness. That took courage, Madison. Real courage. Not many people could face their bullies like that, let alone offer them a path forward. My dad used to say that everybody makes mistakes, Madison said. He said the important thing is learning from them and doing better. I think maybe those boys are trying to do better. Maybe they are, Bull agreed, and you just gave them a powerful reason to keep trying. You showed them grace they didn't earn, but might grow into deserving. That's about the most human thing a person can do. The rest of the event continued with a lighter atmosphere. The band played festive bluegrass versions of holiday songs. Children excitedly picked out toys from the donation tables, and the community came together in a celebration of generosity and connection. The Iron Brotherhood raised over $15,000 for their charitable programs, and Madison was photographed with Bull and the club members for the local newspaper's story about the event. As the afternoon wound down, Travis, Cody, and Jared approached Bull before leaving. Travis spoke for the group. Mr. Henderson, we wanted to thank you for stopping us that day, for making us face what we did, for giving us a chance to actually become better people instead of just getting punished and learning nothing. Don't thank me yet, Bull said gruffly. Thank me in 5 years if you've become men of character. Thank me if you use this experience to stand up for people who need defending instead of tearing them down. Thank me if you make your communities better places because you're in them. We will, Travis promised. I don't know if you'll ever see it, but we will. I'm going to NC State next fall to study social work now, not business. I want to work with people with disabilities. I want to actually do some good in the world to balance out the harm I caused. That's a start, Bull said, and extended his hand. Travis shook it, followed by Cody and Jared, and then the 3 boys left the shop with their heads held a little higher, but their steps still humble. Ray joined Bull, watching them go. Think it'll stick? Who knows, Bull replied, but we gave them a chance to be better, and Madison gave them forgiveness they didn't earn. That's more than most people get. What they do with it is up to them now. Spring arrived in Asheville with an explosion of color. Dogwood and redbud trees bloomed across the city. The mountains traded their snowcaps for green-growing things, and tourists began returning in force. Blue Ridge Coffee's patio was packed most afternoons with visitors and locals alike, soaking up the mild weather. Madison had been promoted to shift supervisor, a title that came with a small raise and increased responsibilities. Glenn had been impressed by her resilience and growth following the incident, and he believed she'd earned the recognition. Madison took her new role seriously, helping train newer employees and managing the afternoon rush with quiet competence. The Iron Brotherhood had become permanent fixtures in her life. Bull stopped by every Saturday morning for his espresso and a chat. Ray brought his motorcycle in for repairs at Chris's shop and always swung by the cafe afterward. Dom made it part of his regular route when on shift with the ambulance service. Chris recruited Madison to help with a charity motorcycle wash event, where Madison's enthusiasm and genuine kindness with customers made the fundraiser their most successful ever. Patricia had joined the Iron Brotherhood Supporters Group, a network of family members and community supporters who helped with events and fundraising. She'd found unexpected friendship among the other members, many of them parents of veterans or veterans themselves, and she appreciated the sense of community the club fostered. On a warm Saturday in late March, Madison received an unexpected letter at work. Glenn handed it to her during her afternoon break with a curious expression. This came addressed to you, care of the cafe. Looks official. Madison opened it carefully and read the typed letter inside. Her eyes widened, and she immediately pulled out her phone to call her mother. "Mom, I got a letter. It's from the Asheville Area Rights Alliance. They want me to speak at an event about disability awareness and bullying prevention. They want me to tell my story." Patricia's voice came through excited and warm. "Oh, honey, that's wonderful. What do you think? Do you want to do it?" Madison thought about it for a long moment. 6 months ago, she would have said no immediately. The idea of speaking in front of people about the worst experience of her life would have been terrifying. But she'd grown since then. She'd faced her fears, confronted her bullies, and found her voice in ways she never had before. "I think I do want to do it," Madison said, "because maybe if I tell my story, other people who get bullied will know they're not alone. And maybe people who bully others will hear it and stop before they hurt someone." "Then you should absolutely do it," Patricia said firmly. "I'll be there with you, and I bet Bull and the others would come too." The event was scheduled for late April at the Asheville Civic Center. It was part of a larger conference on disability rights and inclusion, and Madison would be on a panel with other self-advocates discussing their experiences with discrimination and bullying. Bull and the entire Iron Brotherhood committed to attending in full club regalia, leather jackets, patches and all. "You stood up for yourself when you needed to," Bull told Madison when she nervously asked if they'd really come. "Now we stand up with you." That's what family does. The night of the event, Madison wore her best purple dress and had practiced her speech dozens of times with her mother and her counselor. She was still nervous. Her hands trembled slightly as she waited backstage, but she was also determined. When her turn came to speak, she walked to the podium and looked out at an audience of nearly 200 people. She spotted her mother in the third row, wiping away tears already. Behind Patricia sat Bull, Ray, Dom, Chris, and at least a dozen other Iron Brotherhood members, their leather jackets a striking visual reminder of the protection and support they represented. Madison took a deep breath and began. "My name is Madison Turner. I'm 20 years old, and I have Down syndrome. I want to tell you about something that happened to me and about the people who helped me when I needed it most." She spoke for 15 minutes, recounting the bullying at Blue Ridge Coffee, the escalation to physical assault, and the moment the Iron Brotherhood arrived. She talked about her fear, her pain, and her struggle to understand why anyone would want to hurt her just for being different. But she also spoke about healing, about the power of community support, and about the importance of standing up against cruelty. "The boys who hurt me are working to be better people now," Madison said near the end of her speech. "I forgave them because staying angry was hurting me more than it was hurting them. But forgiving doesn't mean forgetting, and it doesn't mean what they did was okay. It just means I'm not going to let their cruelty define my life." She paused, looking at the faces watching her with rapt attention. "I learned that I'm stronger than I thought I was. I learned that asking for help isn't weakness, it's smart. And I learned that there are people in the world who will stand up for you when you need them, even if they're strangers who just happen to be getting coffee that day." The applause when she finished was thunderous. People stood, and Madison saw tears on many faces. Bull was grinning with unmistakable pride, and several of the Iron Brotherhood members were openly crying. After the panel, dozens of people approached Madison. Parents thanked her for speaking up. Other individuals with disabilities shared their own stories. Teachers and counselors asked if they could use her story in their anti-bullying programs. But the most unexpected visitor came near the end of the evening. Travis Blackwood approached hesitantly, staying at a respectful distance until Madison noticed him. "Travis?" Madison was surprised. "What are you doing here?" "I heard you were speaking," he said quietly. "I came to listen. I hope that's okay. I stayed in the back and I'm not trying to bother you. I wanted to hear what you had to say." Madison glanced at Bull, who had positioned himself protectively nearby, but made no move to intervene. She looked back at Travis and saw that he looked different. Older somehow, more serious. The cocky cruelty that had defined him before was completely gone. "What did you think?" Madison asked simply. "I think you're one of the bravest people I've ever seen," Travis said, his voice thick with emotion. "And I think I'll spend the rest of my life trying to become even half as good a person as you are. Thank you for telling your story. Thank you for including the part about forgiveness. I don't deserve it, but I'm going to work every day to try to earn it." He started to leave, but Madison spoke up. "Travis, I meant what I said that day at the toy drive. When you really change, when you're really a better person, maybe one day you can come get coffee at Blue Ridge, and you can be a good customer." Travis nodded, not trusting himself to speak, and walked away. Bull came to stand beside Madison. "That was generous of you." "My dad used to say that everybody deserves a chance to be better," Madison said. "Travis is trying. I can see it. Maybe he'll succeed, maybe he won't. But I hope he does, because the world needs more good people." "You're absolutely right," Bull agreed. "And you're one of the good ones, Madison Turner, one of the very best." The spring sunshine warmed Asheville as the city celebrated its annual Earth Day festival in Pack Square. Blue Ridge Coffee had a booth set up, serving iced drinks to festival goers, and Madison was working it with her characteristic enthusiasm. She'd become something of a local celebrity since her speech, recognized in grocery stores, invited to speak at schools, featured in the local newspaper's profile on inspiring young people. She'd handled the attention with grace, always emphasizing that she wasn't special for surviving bullying, but that everyone deserved to be treated with dignity and respect. She'd become an advocate without quite meaning to, simply by being authentically herself and refusing to hide her story. The Iron Brotherhood had expanded their mentorship programs, partnering with local disability services organizations to provide protective presence for other vulnerable community members who faced harassment. They'd received regional recognition for their community service work, and their annual fundraisers now drew participants from across Western North Carolina. Travis Blackwood was finishing his freshman year at NC State, majoring in social work with a focus on disability services. He volunteered weekly at a residential program for adults with developmental disabilities and had started a campus organization promoting inclusion and disability rights. He'd written Madison a letter every 3 months, updating her on his progress, but never asking for anything in return. She'd responded to a few of them, brief notes of encouragement that meant more to him than she probably realized. Cody Hartman had joined the Marines after graduation, finding structure and purpose in military service. Before he left for basic training, he donated his first month's salary to Special Olympics in Madison's name. Jared Mitchell was attending community college and working part-time at the group home where he'd done his community service, discovering a genuine passion for supportive care work. As Madison handed an iced latte to a customer, she spotted a familiar group of motorcycles pulling up near the square. Bull, Ray, Dom, and Chris dismounted, along with several other club members. They'd come to support the festival and specifically to visit Madison's booth. "Hey there, Supervisor," Bull greeted with his signature grin. "How's business?" "Really good," Madison reported proudly. "We've already sold over 100 drinks, and Glenn says we might run out of cups." "That's excellent." Bull ordered his usual espresso, iced now that the weather had warmed, and left a $20 bill in the tip jar. As the afternoon wore on, the square filled with music, laughter, and the easy energy of a community coming together. Madison took her break and sat with Patricia at a nearby bench, watching the festival activity. "You know what's weird?" Madison said thoughtfully. "Sometimes I'm glad that bad thing happened." Patricia looked at her daughter in surprise. "What do you mean, honey?" "I mean, it was really awful when it was happening," Madison explained. "It hurt so much and I was so scared. But if it hadn't happened, I wouldn't have met Bull and everyone from the Iron Brotherhood. I wouldn't have learned how strong I am. I wouldn't have gotten to help other people by telling my story. So the bad thing turned into good things, kind of. Patricia pulled her daughter close. That's a very wise way to look at it. Not everyone could find the good in a bad experience like that. Bull says that's what warriors do, Madison said. They take bad things and make them into reasons to be better and stronger. He says I'm a warrior, even though I don't ride a motorcycle. He's absolutely right, Patricia said, her voice warm with love and pride. You're the bravest warrior I know. Across the square, Bull was discussing upcoming club business with Ray and Dom when Chris nudged him and pointed toward Madison and Patricia. Look at that. She's genuinely happy, confident. That's what victory looks like. Bull followed her gaze and smiled. That's what it's all about, isn't it? Not the big dramatic rescues or the confrontations. It's the aftermath. It's seeing someone who was hurt become whole again. It's knowing that when she needed people to stand with her, we were there. Think we made a difference? Ray asked. I know we did, Bull replied with certainty, and she made a difference right back. Reminded all of us why we do this work, why the brotherhood matters. As the sun began to set over the Blue Ridge Mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Madison's favorite color, she stood behind the cafe booth, serving drinks, laughing with customers, and living her life with the confidence of someone who knew she was valued, protected, and loved. 3 teenage boys who once hurt her were now working to be better men, carrying the lesson of her forgiveness as motivation to do good in the world. A motorcycle club that happened to stop for coffee at exactly the right moment had found renewed purpose in their community protection mission. A mother had discovered a network of support she never knew existed. And a young woman with Down syndrome had learned that her voice mattered, her story had power, and her capacity for grace could change lives. The Iron Brotherhood's patch read, "Strength through unity," around an image of clasped hands. As Bull watched Madison serve another customer with her trademark enthusiasm and genuine kindness, he thought those words had never been more true. Unity had given Madison strength when she needed it. Her strength had given Travis and his friends a chance at redemption, and all of it together had made their community stronger, more compassionate, and more connected. That was the real answer, Bull reflected. Not the dramatic confrontation in a parking lot, but this, a sunny Saturday in Asheville, where a young woman who'd been knocked down was standing tall, surrounded by people who loved her, in a community that valued her contribution, living proof that cruelty could be overcome, and that bullies could be answered definitively, not with violence, but with unwavering support, accountability, and the transformative power of second chances. Madison Turner was more than a survivor. She was a teacher, showing everyone around her what true courage looked like. And the Iron Brotherhood would make damn sure that lesson was never forgotten.